Hi guys, it's Theo Stocker here from Yachting Monthly, and today we are on the brand new Bavaria C46. We've just slipped lines, I'm just putting the lines away, and we've got Gabby who's on the helm today. She's taking us out for a sail. And I'm really excited to test this boat. We've got a beautiful October day, we've got sunshine and upwards of 20 knots of wind out on the water when we get onto the Solent, hopefully. So it should be a really good sail. Now this replaces the C45, it's the second generation Casuti design for Bavaria. And I tested the C38, her little sister, a couple of years ago, and actually really enjoyed it. I'm really interested to see how this boat sails today. In terms of design, she's a little bit wider than her predecessor, particularly in the bow, and although she's slightly heavier, she actually got a little bit less ballast. Now that's compensated for by the increased form stability of this nice wide hull, but I'm really interested to see how she handles, particularly with a little bit of breeze in her sails today. So we're sailing upwind now. We've been out having a good test of the boat, and as you can see the breeze has picked up a little bit. We just came through 21 knots of true wind there. Wind's back down to about 14, 15 knots of true, giving us sort of 18 knots across the deck. So it's quite good testing conditions really, force 4, gusting force 5. And right now I'm doing just over 6 knots, 6.2, 6.3 knots at 30 to 40 degrees to the wind. Well, you can see we've got the helm nicely balanced, we've got the tape in the middle there. And this is a pleasant boat to helm. We've got twin wheels with composite wheels linked to a single deep rudder, which just gives it a really direct feel. There's a little bit of weight to it. It's not quite as responsive as, say, a race boat or a performance cruiser, but this is a pure cruising boat, and actually the boat goes exactly where I want it to, and it follows the helm really obediently. We have overpressed her today, particularly in some of the big gusts, and only when we had full sail up and we were properly overpowered did she start to round up a little bit. When that happened, it went slowly and completely under control, and either just feathering up into the wind or easing the main sheet brought her back under control. But the boat tells you when it's balanced, when you need to ease the main or put a bit of backstay on, and making those changes makes a difference to how the helm feels and how the boat sails. So this is a really enjoyable, responsive cruising boat to sail. Right, we are going back downwind now. We've sailed up past Bewley, well, not quite to Lymington, but a fair old way. So we're punching against the tide. We've got the wind behind us, doing a nice 6.5 to 7.3, something like that, over the ground, and true wind speed of about 16 knots, so nice force 4 behind us. While we've got a bit of sunshine, I thought I'd show you around the helm and around the cockpit, and then we can have a look up on deck. One of the things that they've done with the C46 is to redesign the helm pedestal. It was a big sort of tall thing before. They've gone for a much wider, lower unit now, and the centerpiece of that is the optional B&G Zeus plotter. I think that's a 9-inch or a 12-inch. It's quite a big one. We've also got electronic throttle, compass, bow thruster. On that side we've got a wireless phone charger and a stereo and all that kind of stuff. But a nice little touch is that they've created a side panel here so that when I'm sitting down and helming, which I quite often do, and sitting outboard, I can see all of my instruments without having to stand up. And there's also autopilot control and engine control there as well. So that's nicely laid out. In front of me, I've got 2 winches, both of which are powered, so we haven't had to touch a winch handle all day. Very good if you're feeling lazy, or it just takes the strain out of it really. So there are my control buttons, and then all of my sheets and halyards and everything are led aft, so there's nothing on the coach roof. That works really well when I'm single-handing or sailing short-handed, because at the touch of a button and within easy reach of the wheel I can control everything. The only thing with that we found was that because all of the sheets and lines have to be controlled from the helm, it's a little bit crowded. If someone's helming and someone's trying to do the sheets and lines, it's it gets a bit sort of hectic at times when you're trying to do lots of things, tacking and jibing and reefing and furling, and so then the person who's helming actually went over to the windward side, and that was fine. Underneath me I've got a rope bin, so all of the lines come aft. We've got a decent sized rope bin there for the halyards and sheets, and aft of that is a little gas locker. Well, this one's actually a locker for a spare gas bottle. The proper working gas locker is on that side, and I can fit quite a big gas bottle in there. And then we've got a helm seat aft of the wheel, which is nice, and this boat uses that. You can have that as stowage, but on this boat there's a gas grill on that side and there's a fridge on port side. We've also got little Osculati davits. Those pop up and fold aft when you drop these down, because Bavaria did away with the tender garage, so you could only fit a really small inflated dinghy in a tender garage anyway. There is a locker just under this seat where you can stow a rolled up dinghy or a paddleboard, and that's actually got an air compressor in it as well, so you can just pump stuff up straight away. To do that, you obviously just drop the bathing platform down. There's a little step down onto the bathing platform, and then you can access the locker, you can use the davits, and that's also where you would stand to use the grill. On the floor I've got little pop-up footrests. They don't need to be very high, but they sort of single-handed operation. It just gives you a slightly firmer footing when the boat's heeling, and we've used that a fair bit today. Let's look forwards in the cockpit. One of the advantages of having nearly 5 metres of beam is you get a really wide cockpit. Now, to stop it feeling too spacious and like you might fall across it, we've actually got 2 permanently mounted tables with a walkway through in between them. The leaves lift up so that you can join that into a single table if you want to. That little just props up there, and there's a leaf on that side as well. So you've got a really good big table on either side if you want it. And then we've got the cushions on today because why not? It makes it really comfortable. But you've got space with these L-shaped seating that you can really lounge around without getting in anybody's way. And if I didn't want to be involved in the sailing, then I've got somewhere comfortable to sit out of the way. The only winch that is slightly further forward are these winches, which on this boat are again powered, and they are for the Genoa sheets if you were flying a Genoa, whereas today we've got a self-tacking jib up, and the lines for that are taken after the helm. A couple of little neat touches in the table. We've got stowage bins in here. It's full of chocolate and fruit and things today, trying to be a bit healthy. Drinks holders, and then you've also got a nifty little light on either side. There we go. There, so when you're in harbour at night, you probably can't see that in the sunshine, but it means that you've got ambient lighting and you don't have to light candles or lanterns or whatever. Anyway, it's just a nice little touch for socialising in the cockpit. The companionway, there's obviously no lines around here. We've got the spray hood down, but we'll pop that up in a little bit so you can have a look at it. And then there are instrument repeaters above the companionway as well, so that other people in the crew can see that. If you're looking for a bit of, it just helps get people involved when they can see where you're sailing, what the wind's doing, rather than only the person at the helm being able to see that. Going forwards then, you can either walk up onto the side deck behind the helm, or if you don't mind standing on the cushions, stepping over here. The coamings are quite wide, and we have got stowage lockers under there. I'll show you those in a bit. They're reasonably wide coamings, but they have got a grip surface on top of them. And there's the Genoa sheets led aft, but actually all of the lines go under the coaming, so there's no lines to accidentally grab hold of. Coming forwards then, I've got good wide side decks. We've got handholds that come aft to just the forward of the spray hood. So you can hold onto the spray hood and then onto the handles. The handles don't go very far forward, but they do take you far forward enough to get to the shrouds up here. This boat's got the option of the Genoa track, so for the overlapping Genoa, if you wanted to set that, although we haven't got that rigged on this boat. You can see the lines coming aft under the ducting, under the deck. We've got loads of windows. There's 2 windows either side that don't open, and then the 2 hatches midships that do open. Yeah, and then this mast is in-mast furling, so you can see you've got the furling line there, and you can use a winch handle in there manually if you don't want to do it with the powered winches. Ahead of the mast we've got the self-tacking jib track. All the deck kit is from Selden on this boat, so it's a good standard of spec. And then we've got this massive open foredeck. It would be quite nice to have some handholds here, but it's not the end of the world. We've got lots of opening hatches. There's one either side for the heads compartments. And on this boat we've got 2 forward cabins. So you've also got 2 opening hatches above both of the beds. Most people, I would imagine, will opt for the single forward cabin, the big owner's cabin. And then you just get the luxury of 2 opening hatches above your bed and a shower compartment and a separate heads compartment. Up on the foredeck, you can see this boat's got the option of a teak deck. You can have synthetic teak, or you can just have plain grip tech if you prefer, if you don't want to tick that option. We've got a really large forepeak in here, so that's full of fenders at the moment, but that's where the downwind sails go. There's a little ladder that you can also use as a rack to tie things off to. We've got the remote for the anchor windlass, and you've also got a couple of nifty little shelves so that you can store tools or whatever other spares, sail ties. But it's quite a useful little storage space, and there are some shelves down the aft side of that, so it's a really good practical locker space. And it's got a wooden floor underneath it with a bit more space below it if you need it. Good for shoving bulky deck kit into. It's also worth saying that the anchor chain comes aft, and you can access the chain locker through here. There's a hatch at the forward end of that. Otherwise, you can see that we've got this moulded bowsprit on the bow, good solid deck kit, and then 2 mounting points for a code 0 at the inner end and a Gennaker at the aft end. We were going to fly that today, but we thought that with 2 of us on board and upwards of 20 knots of wind, that might be a little bit lively. Got furling head sail here. There's an above deck furler, which actually for a cruising boat is probably more practical. It means that the foot of the sail clears the pulpit, also gives you slightly better visibility underneath the sail, and you don't need all of the performance of the sail touching the foredeck. Other than that, you've got a good deep bulwark, so moulded bulwark here, which keeps your feet nice and secure, and all the water just drains all the way aft and over the transom, so you don't get streaks down the side of the boat. And that's pretty much it up here. The last thing to show you in the cockpit is just about the stowage, and we've got pretty good stowage on this boat. There's a decent sized lazarette between the helm seats aft, and that's lined with plywood so that it gives you access to some of the systems if you need it, but you can put stuff in there without it getting caught up with wires or ducting or that kind of thing. And this boat's also fitted with a deck shower, which is a nice little optional extra tick. Between that you've got the steering quadrant, and that's accessible on deck, which is quite a nice touch, so you can check all your steering systems, and the autopilot RAM is all there as well. And obviously it's a single rudder stock because it's just a single rudder boat. Last bits of stowage then, you've got 2 sole depth lockers either side, port and starboard. They're not big enough for fenders, but for lines and ropes and all your other cruising clobber, they're really good. Move the cushions out of the way, and then you've got a decent amount of space in there on both sides. Well, that's enough of on deck. We've still got a little bit of time while we're out sailing, so let's go and have a look down below. Right, we're down below, and we come into this really large, open, airy and light space. So we'll have a bit of a look around. Come down the companionway, you've got 5 steps here, they're beveled at the edges and they've got grip strips on, so that all feels pretty secure, and you've got these nice stainless steel leather covered handholds, and this is a little bit of a theme, that the finishing touches that make a boat feel a little bit more luxurious, a little bit more personalised. There are quite a few of these on this boat. Some of those are on the options list, but it feels like a nice level of spec on the boat. Coming down, I've noticed I could do with 1 or 2 more handholds just at the bottom of the companionway. The next one that I've got isn't too far away, but it's a little bit of a stretch to at the aft end of the galley. Could maybe do with 1 on a bulkhead here. That's a minor detail though. Now effectively we've got galley to port, C-shaped galley to port, C-shaped seating to starboard, both of which feel really nice and big. And really nice to see we've got a proper chart table to port. So on the old C45 there was a chart table, but it was a forward facing one, I think at the forward end on the port side from what I can remember. So to actually have a proper chart table I really like, even if you're just going to do your emails here. It is big enough to put a leisure folio chart on, and you've got a bit of chart stowage in here that'll work as well. You've got all of your chart plotter and instruments here, so I've got radio, I've got chart plotter as I say, stereo, generator control and switch panel. And it's worth saying that this boat has got a very high level of spec, so it's got a generator, it's got 2 air conditioning units, it's got heating. Basically it's had everything ticked on the options list that it could have done. Let's go forwards and have a look at the galley. So this is a huge galley. We've got a large return at the aft end, and that's got 2 drawer fridges in. So they are absolutely cavernous. You can have the bottom one as a freezer if you want it. You've got a pantry outboard here. That one's actually another fridge, cool box. And there's a further pantry locker. That's not a cool box. I guess you could convert it if you wanted it to be. I think you've got quite a lot of refrigerated space. We've got a 3-burner cooker here. We've got a microwave that's been installed. Nice little touch. This comes up on gas struts, and we've actually got, it's not quite an extractor fan, but it is an air filter for when you're cooking to get the smells out of the air, as in addition to the opening hatch that you've got above it. And all of the lockers, we've got lockers all the way around. They're top opening with a little fiddle and a little retaining strap. So everything is as it should be, and you get quite a good amount of stowage there. And we've also got this fiddled shelf behind here, which will be really useful for condiments and whatever loose items you want to stow. We've got a double sink that's quite neatly done. They're actually 2 separate sinks, but I think it's always nice to have something where you can put dishcloths and soap and things like that. It's not quite big enough for draining much washing, but it's really nice to have that. But you're probably not going to do very much washing up because you have a dishwasher. We've got a drawer dishwasher in here. Now, if you want the fizzy, chilled water coming straight from the tap, that would go in this place here. So you're going to have to choose between your fizzy, sparkling water, chilled, sparkling water, and your dishwasher. But then beggars can't be choosers, hey? And then you've got a little bit more stowage for cleaning equipment under there. Opposite the galley, then we've got the C-shaped saloon, and this is a really good big saloon table. The seating around is actually 260 centimetres long, so if you drop this down you can have an enormous double. So you could sleep 2 people there, and if you were to have the 5 cabin version, plus that you could actually sleep 12 people on board this boat. As it is, we've got stowage under the bench seat, and this bench seat with these little screw knobs there is adjustable, so I can undo that and then slide it in underneath the table. But that means it's properly secure when you're at sea, which is a great touch. Other little things on the table, like you've got these little cutouts, so that if you've got crumbs on the table you can brush them off without the fiddles getting in the way. And it's nice to see solid wood fiddles all the way around the edge of this table and on so many of the corners of the joinery. I feel like Bavaria has really increased the sort of the finish details to a really good level on this boat, such as, I mean, you've got fabric panels on the bulkheads. That's an optional extra obviously, but that makes it feel quite sophisticated and quite homely as well, a little bit more luxurious, like the surrounds for the hull windows. And the hull windows are a lovely detail because you can sit at the table and see out. And they're also all exactly in a line at the same height above the waterline, so they look quite neat from the outside. And then above that you've got outboard lockers for stowage, overhead lockers, and you've got opening windows in the coach roof side windows, as well as the opening lockers above you, and these two long strip windows. So there's absolutely loads of light and ventilation and really good amounts of stowage in here as well. On this boat they've gone for the 2 forward cabin layout, which is probably going to be what charter companies go for mostly. Most owners are going to go for a single forward cabin where you get a massive island bed. You get a heads compartment in there and a shower compartment in there, or it might be vice versa. But the cabin would come all the way aft to this bulkhead. This would be the door to your cabin, and you'd have a nice little bookshelf here, or bottle rack, or whatever you want it to be, and then a huge floor area. As it is, we've got 2 slightly smaller cabins, but they're both still really comfortable. So let's have a look. We're in the port side one, and you've got a bed that's over 2 meters long, and at the aft end it's 170 centimeters wide, 80 centimeters at the far end, so perfectly wide enough to be comfortable, although it is more of a triangular bed. In the owner's one, it's just a huge sort of rectangular island bed, really. We've got good amounts of stowage. You've got overhead lockers all the way along here. They're all fiddled, little catches, so it's nicely done. On this one, you've got heating. We've also got air conditioning. So you've got the full works in this boat in terms of creature comforts. You've got a good big hanging locker to port with a little bit of shelved space at the bottom. And then nicely, for a production boat, they've actually worked really hard on the stowage and using all of the space. So you've got a little bin locker underneath the wardrobe there. Underneath the berth, you've got a good deep drawer, and there's more stowage further back. And then you've got a heads compartment in here. So the heads compartment in this one has the shower and the toilet together, so you will get a wet floor, but they've got nice wooden floor gratings and electric flushing toilets. So again, they've gone for a really high level of spec in this boat. Welcome to the aft heads. So we've got twin aft heads. This one doesn't actually have a separate shower compartment, but it is a bit further forward than the heads. The one to starboard does have, I think, a separate shower compartment. Again, we've got electric flush with holding tanks. This one, it also serves as an ensuite to the aft cabin with a separate door through here into the port aft. So this is sort of that cabin. And that was one of the things about the this Bavaria in particular, and Bavarias generally, is that they are really working to improve privacy. So you've got a cabin that has enough space to dress and get into bed comfortably, and to private access to your head, so that really when you're staying on board, you've got your own little space. Welcome to the aft heads. I'm on starboard side now, and this is the heads compartment that has a separate shower compartment at the forward end with a little perspex door. Slides shut, so you can keep the rest of the floor space completely dry. This one, as with all the other ones, has got a holding tank with electric flush. You've got more of your heating and air conditioning ducting in here, and you've also got private access to the starboard aft cabin, so that this one serves as the port aft head serves as an ensuite heads to that cabin. So you've actually got 4 cabins with 4 en-suites, which is a really nice touch. There is an option to have the port aft cabin as a utility room if you don't want it, or this cabin you can actually turn into a double bunk room as well. So you could have 2 bunk beds here instead of the toilet and shower. You'd obviously keep the port toilet on that side, but then this would be your 5th cabin, which would be a bunk cabin. Right, finally we'll have a look in the port aft cabin. Here we go, we've got the door to your own ensuite heads there. And then we've got a really good big bed in here. It's 170 centimetres wide and over 2 metres long, so again it's bigger than a king size bed. And they've put in some nice touches. We've got air conditioning underneath here, bin stowage to starboard, a small hanging locker outboard, and then to make use of this beam here, you can see we've got so much beam that we've actually got outboard lockers there that just drop down. And there's little things like the lights have got USB ports underneath them. There's wireless chargers on the shelves. The shelves got nice fiddle, so you can keep your book or your bottle of water or whatever overnight. And then you've got plenty of ventilation in here. There's an opening hatch above me. There's an opening hatch behind me, and there's one in the deck head as well. So you've got plenty of ventilation if the air conditioning isn't enough for you. And then we've also got good access into the side of the engine room. Right, the last thing to show you down below is the engine room, engine compartment, and that's on gas struts. And in here you can see that we've got the Yanmar 80 with a sail drive, and you've got access to fuel filters, alternator belts, and then the other systems are accessible through the panels at the side of the engine. This one, also sitting on top of a frame, has got a gen set, and that drives all of the 240 volt systems on board, including the air conditioning, dishwasher, and if you're up to the washing machine in the utility room here, then that kind of stuff as well. It's fairly full in there. You've also got air conditioning further aft in that space. So there's a whole load of systems, but access is actually really good. And it's illuminated as well, which is nice, so it makes it a bit easier to do maintenance in there. So there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed having a sail aboard the Bavaria C46 with me today. Now, I'm sure you're all going to want to know how much a boat like this costs. Well, the base price, excluding VAT, here in the UK is £287,000. If you're going to spec that up to a fairly nice but sort of standard cruising spec for the UK, you're looking at just over £550,000, including VAT. The boat, as we've tested it today, the owners have really gone to town on the options list and have ticked pretty much everything going, from air conditioning to extra fridges and dishwashers, and they've managed to get the price up to £675,000 or just over it, including VAT. Now that clearly puts the boat into the realm of some quite expensive boats, but you don't have to have all of those options, and you could save, well, over £100,000 by not going quite so mad on the options list. Do I like the boat, and have Bavaria achieved what they set out to? Well, they wanted a boat with more volume, more comfort and more sailing enjoyment, and I think she does all of that. The accommodation and the space both below decks and on decks is huge and really nicely finished, with some good touches and some good little bits of detailing, and done to a really good standard and quality as well, so I was impressed by that. In terms of the handling, she sails nicely, she's enjoyable to sail, she's not going to set the world alight, she's not meant to be a racing boat, but she was well mannered and sailed at a decent pace. We were going upwind around sort of 30 to 35 degrees off the wind at about 6.5 knots, something like that. As soon as you're off the wind, she's up 7-8 knots. So that's a really good turn of speed. The helm was responsive and direct. It was a little bit heavy. That might be because of rudder balance, I'm not sure. But it didn't spoil the enjoyment of the sail, and we've had lovely conditions for it, and the boat's really shown that she can stand up to the breeze, and we're reefing around sort of 15 knots of true wind, something like that, which you'd expect from a cruising boat. So if you've got that kind of money, then this might be a boat that is definitely worth considering. She's going to give you lots of comfort when you're on board, in harbour, at anchor, whether you're in a hot country or with the spray hood up in a colder country like the UK. She's going to be a really good cruising boat, and when you do go out sailing, she'll give you plenty of enjoyment as well.